The MagnaFlow Street catback exhaust system that we have here today is an extremely popular option that should appeal to all 2015 through 2017 GT owners who prefer that deep thumping tone as opposed to maybe a higher pitched raspy tone that tends to dominate the category. Now the Street will offer a full stainless steel build along with the 3-inch mandrel bent tubing and massive 4.5-inch tips, all for right around the $1,500 to $1,600 price point. Install is going to be a 100% bolt-on job, guys, but since all of your work is done underneath the car, site's just going to kick this one up to a soft 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and call it a couple of hours or so to complete from start to finish. So full disclosure, guys, I had a MagnaFlow Street system on my personal S197 for quite a while back in the day, and I can say there was a lot I really liked about the MagnaFlow. Now, for one, the tone was exactly what I was looking for at the time, just really deep, nice and aggressive, but the volume levels were just right even after I added my off-road H-pipe. Now, secondly, I felt the tone was a bit different from a lot of the other Coyote-based systems out there. Deeper again overall, which if you know the Coyote, you know achieving a deep tone with an aftermarket system is not always an easy task. So what does that all mean when it comes time to break out our Wake the Neighbor scale? Well, you guys heard the sound clips at the top of this video, and listen, if you're looking for a lot of volume out of the MagnaFlow, you might be a bit disappointed because that's not what the Street system is all about. Instead, you are getting a noticeable bump in sound over the factory cans, which in my opinion is good enough to achieve a healthy 3 out of 5 on my 1 to 5 or 1 to Wake the Neighbor scale. Now, the competition system, also from MagnaFlow, is certainly going to provide you with a little bit more volume overall, but it's not a massive difference between the two. That would be more of a 4 out of 5 system. Now, switching gears to go inside the car, not gonna lie, guys, you will hear the MagnaFlow at certain points. It's certainly something I experienced with my personal car, and it's something you will see in a few customer reviews. As always, read up on some of those if you haven't done so already. But at the end of the day, the noise inside the car certainly wasn't offensive or annoying, and the noise outside of the car made it all worth it. But outside of sound, one of the things that always stands out to me with the MagnaFlow systems is just the overall rock-solid build quality. Now, granted, you're not getting the fanciest materials here with the Street, 409 grade stainless to be exact, that's your primary metal, but the welds, the fitment are all completely dead on. And listen, it's not a cheap system, but this is one of those cases where you certainly get what you pay for. But aside from the 409 grade stainless steel, prospective buyers can also look forward to things like 3-inch mandrel bent tubing throughout, leading into and out of your stamped X pipe here or X style crossover pipe, and then finally through your straight through Street Series mufflers before exiting out the rather large 4.5-inch tips, which do feature some laser etching with the MagnaFlow logo. Last but not least, guys, the system does include all of your clamps and everything needed for a very painless installation. Now, before we get into that install, guys, I just want to remind you again to read up on some of the 100 plus 4 and 5-star reviews here on the site in regards to the MagnaFlow Street. It's a great way to hear from fellow S550 owners about what they think the MagnaFlow is all about once they've got it installed. Here's some things they like, maybe some things they don't, and ultimately help you with your buying decision for your catback. But now we want to give you a better idea of just how to remove that factory catback and get the new MagnaFlow Street in place. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to my buddy Joe. He's going to walk you through it now and give you a quick tool breakdown.
The tools used for this install are an impact gun, a ratchet, 15 and 13 millimeter sockets, and a short extension. So the first step of this installation is going to be removing our factory catback exhaust from our vehicle. Now, luckily, it comes off in one big piece. You might need an extra set of hands, but you'll only need some simple hand tools to get the job done, and I'm going to walk you through every step of the process. I'm going to start with my 15 millimeter socket on my impact gun, and I'm going to loosen up these 2 nuts on each clamp. I'm going to loosen them, but I'm not going to remove the clamps just yet. Now I've moved back here to the subframe right behind the rear differential, and there are 2 13 millimeter bolts securing these exhaust hangers to the subframe. I'm going to take my 13 mil socket on my ratchet, remove those bolts, but I'm going to leave the hangers hanging on the subframe and then move on to my rear muffler hangers. Moving on to my rear muffler hangers, there are 2 bolts that secure this. One is on the inside of the frame rail, the other one is on the bottom of the frame rail right behind the muffler. Once again, I'm going to use my 13mm socket on my ratchet to remove this inner frame rail bolt, and then I'm going to use a small extension with my 13 socket to remove that lower frame rail bolt. As I mentioned, I'm going to use a small extension to get to this lower frame rail bolt here, once again my 13mm socket. Once I have those 2 bolts removed, I can unclip the hanger from the frame rail. With both of these bolts removed, I can just push up on my muffler a little bit and unclip the hanger from the frame rail and move it down out of my way. Now I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side of the exhaust. Now that I have these 2 hangers unhooked, now I'm just sitting on my subframe hangers behind my differential. Now's the point where you might want to grab an extra set of hands just so you can help wrestle off the front and the back at the same time so this thing doesn't fall off the car. I'm going to lift from these hangers here at the subframe while my extra set of hands up front is going to wiggle loose at the catback. With our stock exhaust system off the car and sitting here on the ground, now I can remove the hangers more easily than I would if I was trying to fight them off on the vehicle. So I'm just going to remove these from the hangers, and then I will reinstall them onto the vehicle as I assemble my exhaust system on the car. Make sure not to confuse the left and right hangers, as they will bolt in both ways, but it will be backwards. Now I'm just going to come back in here to my subframe and rehang my exhaust hangers and reinstall my bolts. I'll come back with my 13mm socket and tighten those down, and I'll do the same for the muffler hangers. Now I'll take my 13mm socket and tighten these bolts that I started by hand. Same for my muffler hangers, just start my 13mm bolts by hand and then tighten them with a 13mm socket. Next, I can remove my stock exhaust clamps from the front of my stock catback and reinstall them on the pipes of the vehicle. Now I can slide these onto the factory pipes. Just be mindful of this little nub here on the end of the pipe. It lines up with this tab here on the factory clamp. Now I can install my new X-pipe onto the vehicle. Now there is a shorter and longer side for this X-pipe. I'm gonna make sure the longer side of this pipe is on the passenger side of the vehicle. Now I can install my intermediate pipes that connect my X-pipe to my muffler. I'm just gonna slide these onto the end of the X-pipe. I put a little bit of lubricant on my hangers just to make things slide together easier. Just slip that over the end of the pipe while you line up your hanger location. And that should just slide right into place. I have my clamp pre-installed onto my pipe, and when I'm done, it'll look just like that, and now I can do the other side. Now I can start installing my mufflers. I'll just start by sliding the hanger into place. Once I've got the hanger in, I can line up my pipes and slip them together. Once again, I have my clamp pre-installed onto the end of my muffler, and then I just give that a little wiggle and push, and it's in place. Just like I did on the other side, I'll slip my hanger into place, line up the end of my pipe, which I have my clamp pre-installed, and give it a little wiggle and slide them together. Now ready to start snugging up my clamps. I'm not gonna fully tighten anything, but I am gonna snug them up enough to hold things in place while I make adjustments. I've got this X-pipe sitting nice and level with the vehicle. I'm gonna snug these 2 bolts on this clamp and these 2 bolts on that clamp, just to hold things in place while I work my way back, tightening up the clamps as I go. Working my way back to the end of the X-pipe where the slip joints come in for the intermediate pipes. Once again, I'm going to snug up my clamps so that they hold things in place, but not fully tighten them down until I've made all of my adjustments, and then I'll come back and tighten up all the clamps fully. I've got my hand on the bottom of the muffler, just putting it where I want the muffler and tip locations to be within my bumper opening. I've got this clamp started just a little bit so it doesn't spin while I'm tightening it up, and then I can come in with my 15mm socket and clamp it down. Now I can do the same thing for the other muffler clamp. Once I have the exhaust pipes sitting the way I want them in the openings for the bumper, I can go through and fully tighten all of my other clamps. And that's going to wrap up this review and install of the MagnaFlow Street Series catback exhaust with polished tips, fitting your 2015 to 2017 Mustang GT. Thanks for watching, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.